Andy Garcia. I am from a Hispanic and Latin American culture.
Hi, I'm Karan Soni and I'm Indian.
My name is Emily. I am from Guilin, China, which is a southern province in China.
Alright, hi, I'm Isabella. And I was born here, but I'm Chinese, from mainland.
My name is Naomi Tasama. I'm a senior. My parents were born in Ethiopia, so I'm Ethiopian American. I was born in America.
I'm Julia Ko. I am Korean American.
Okay, so I'm Nina Murthy. I'm Indian American.
My name is Irma Janet Navarro Brown. I am an Associate Director of College Counseling at the Lovett School. And I was born and raised in Guadalajara, Mexico.
Diversity is such a gift. Oh my gosh, look at how much we can learn from each other when we actually listen to each other.
So I would say that it's interesting knowing some things that you might not necessarily agree with.
I was nervous, because it's a new thing to be here. But I was very excited too. It was a good opportunity for me to work here, so I was just nervous.
Event.
I mean, I wouldn't say pressures. I would mainly say like maybe being a bit uncomfortable at Lovett could be a thing. You know, you come to Lovett, and then as an Indian, you have your own beliefs, you have your own kind of culture and whatnot. I think at Lovett, like, there's not that much of a cultural awareness, if you kind of understand what I'm saying. The thing is, like, at lower school, they have those, like, global festival or whatnot, and that, they might have, like, a display of Indian culture, like the food and the things that we wear and stuff, but honestly, I don't think that's enough. And the reason why I'm saying kind of out of place, like, for example, this is kind of touchy, but like, you go to chapel, right? You have a sermon which is like encompassing of everybody. It keeps in mind everyone. It's not like completely just Christianity based. We learn things that everyone can take something out of. But when you think about like the Lord's Prayer or like the Bible verses and stuff, like people talk about the Bible and I really don't know a thing. I actually didn't even know how to say like the whole verse this. Basically I don't know the format. So it's kind of different, I would say, out of place when I'm in the chapel. Like, I'm respectful, of course, of cultures, but I guess that's the main thing. And then when it comes to thinking, I guess my thought process, it's not really me thinking about something else, it's just people thinking about me in a way. Like, for example, when I kind of, practice my beliefs or talk about my beliefs, people ask a lot of questions. People don't get it. Like, people don't get what Diwali means and what Diwali stands for. People don't get why Indian people do this ritual and whatnot, so I'm not so sure about that.
So, do you ever get the feeling like you have this type of pressure coming from your immediate family to, be Mexican? And then, do you ever feel like you have some kind of different pressure coming from school telling you to be a different way or to act a certain way?
No, I don't feel pressure per se from either my family or the Lovett community. I do feel that at Lovett I don't have a lot of outlets, and it's not specific to Lovett, it's just the environment that I had in undergrad or when I was working at a different institution. But there aren't a lot of outlets for me to express that part of myself. Everybody just assumes that my background has been a particular way, and that I can associate with a lot of the concerns or a lot of the pressures that students are feeling, and I empathize with that, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But that's not the reality that I had when I was in their shoes. And so that's, I think, a little bit of the challenge.
So how do you manage, for being here so long, how do you manage to preserve, what Indian culture you have, within yourself and at home and then, here at school?
Probably just by talking about it when people ask about it, like in AP Euro or in New Testament. I just talk about it when I notice something that's different or something that's interesting or something that's similar.
What do you mean by when something that's different?
Like, sometimes when my friends will talk about like going to confirmation or something that they have to do when they go to church, I'll be like, oh, that's kind of similar to what I do at the temple or something like that.
Okay. So here at Lovett, what are some pressures that you face, socially, academically, perceptionally, that you face here at school, being Hispanic?
Well, I think that Lovett has helped reduce some of those expectations, but they all kind of want you to join the culture that they have set up for you. Go to chapel where they usually talk about the Jesus and the Christian faith rather than all other types of religion, which I don't really disagree with, because that's what they're founded off of. But in the world we live in today, you have to be more open to that. So if they wanted to allow for more religious studies, instead of having to go to chapel, if you were a Muslim, you could go pray on your own and things like that. I think it'd be easier for students to feel accepted and not have to just acknowledge and be part of the Lovett culture that they want you to.
Okay, so there was a time when in a world religions class, and it was at least 10 years ago. I don't even remember the names of the kids involved. My memory is so bad. But I remember this because it was really a challenge. I had a very conservative Christian student, a boy, who looked at a Muslim girl who was in the class. And we had been talking about our beliefs, and he looked at her and he said, very contritely, it's like, I'm not trying to be rude, I'm not trying to be offensive, but as a Christian, I believe you're going to hell. And I had this moment in the pit of my stomach, because I've been told I was going to hell, and to me it's one of the most inherently unkind, hateful things that someone can say to another person. And so I was like, I can't let that stand. And I didn't want to leave my Muslim student hanging there. It was just like, that was unacceptable. So it took me a minute. I remember just kind of letting that hang in the air for a second and then saying to the class, why do you suppose that statement is problematic? And we just opened it up to a discussion about what is it about saying someone else is going to hell. So I kind of pushed it away from that particular kid, the two individuals, and we were able to backtrack into this idea of condemning another person and the impact that might have on that other person's sense of being welcome, being accepted. So that was, I would say, that was one of my hardest moments in a classroom.
Has there been any particular moment in the 3 years that you've been here where you felt very uncomfortable? Is there maybe a story that you can tell us about a time when when you were here at school and you just felt very out of place or insulted by someone's actions or by someone's words in regards to your cultural heritage?
Yes. But out of the privacy of those people, obviously, I'm gonna plead the fifth. But I will say, I think one of the things that is challenging is sort of the accumulation of just that negative commentary. I remember one student was talking about, her father's company and, the Mexicans that, that work with her dad and them driving a rape van. And I'm thinking I have relatives that drive, those types of vans to get to work and do what they need to do, and they're lovely people. Or comments from parents, when I'm suggesting perhaps a second-tier school, just to have balance in their list, and the comment from the parents is, I would never allow my son or daughter to apply to a school where they're going to get a technical degree, as if this other potential opportunity is just so beneath them. I was like, well, where would that put me or my dad, like I said, who can't even read or write? So it's those little things, aside from the ones where they're more public. I think for me it's those small ones.
We have class like world religions, which I'm really appreciative of, by the way, that we have at this school, because, you know, it gets people to know at least a base of Hinduism and whatnot. But when people see, like, you know, documentaries or people in India, like, they don't see the whole thing. They see, like, oh, poverty, great, he's probably one of those people, you know, coming from that sort of background. It's not true. I mean, and he's like, oh, dirty areas in India, clearly, you know, he's just that type of person. I mean, like, I think that's like a stereotype, not necessarily in like people see me as, but they would kind of associate with, you know, with me in a way. So I think that's kind of unfair. So
my hope is that I can show my students that every religion is a cultural institution that's constantly growing and moving and changing, that it's a living, breathing organism. So I don't want it to be some kind of subject that is in a book. I want it to be something that feels real, the way their own religion and their own culture feels real.
Why do you think that is? That it's not exactly authentic?
Probably just because there aren't that many Indians here, so there's not a lot of people to come from.
Not a lot of direct.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Alright. When they serve Chinese food in the cafeteria, what are you...
I mean, I don't eat it.
Is it Chinese?
No, it's not. I mean, okay, fine, like, spring rolls, like, that is a thing, you know, like, that's a thing. So, but I don't know, I think it's also a pride thing that I don't eat it, because I have a lot of pride, so, like, I'm not going to eat it because, I mean, I know that it's not, like, authentic.
So the sort of understanding that diversity is such a gift, you know, that to me is such a more positive approach to multicultural perspectives and diversity awareness. Because how can you be prejudiced or be dismissive or dehumanize someone when you realize they've gifted me? You know, they've shown me something that I could never have seen otherwise. So I just think that I just love to have been part of that. How do you tread between highlighting and saying, yes, these are the distinctions. This is what's different, right? Without making it so alien, so strange, so other.
Now, Naomi, your aunt goes to this school, right? So tell me kind of like how that is, you know, just in terms of like a cultural dynamic and how that kind of like helps you be cultural at school.
Well, once people really know my aunt really well because she's been here for so long. So I think when I first came here and people, especially teachers, found out that was my aunt, it sort of like made them feel closer because they're like, oh, like we know your aunt really well and you're like her niece, so you're definitely, like, they kind of like welcomed me even more, and it sort of helped because like when I see my aunt I always say hi to her, and sometimes like we speak Amharic to each other, and being in the library, like people have sort of like looked back at us because they've noticed like we're speaking a different language, but I've loved having her here. She's always been somebody I can go to, and she's literally like down like there, so I love having her, and she's definitely like helped me when it comes to balancing like being Ethiopian and being American in general, but especially like being at a school at Lovett where there's not just a lot of minorities in general, so she's just always been somebody I can depend on.
But I think it is hard because I feel like sometimes internally I think, oh wait, shit, like, oh shoot, am I being like too Asian in this situation? Like, am I being too cultural in this situation? Like, can people not relate to me? Or like, is it not relatable, the things I'm saying or the things I'm doing? Sometimes I think about that. Like,
do you ever get the feeling that your connection with your Mexican heritage is being lost?
Yes, and I worry about that. I think that's part of the reason that I went back to grad school to pursue a degree, because it was a way to continue to learn about my culture and continue to speak in Spanish and be around people where learning about the Hispanic culture is a positive. And other venues too, like I don't know if it's on purpose or even conscious, but I think I know most of the people who speak Spanish on campus. So there's Humberto at IT, and there's Miss Mitchell and Miss Stats in the language department, and Maria and Alejandro and Ramon in dining services. So I try to seek out those outlets whenever possible.
How do you think is, the best way for a student who's bicultural to balance the two different cultures from his school and at home, and how do you balance your own culture?
What I would say to a bicultural student is not that you should balance, it's just let things fall in place. And I think that's the same with me. When you go home, you speak Indian, the Indian language. You don't speak the Indian language here. Because, why would you? No one's going to understand you. Like when you practice Hinduism at home, you can still practice Hinduism here. It's just kind of like by yourself. You don't really go around preaching the Hindu scriptures around here. That's like how you balance. It's common sense, basically. In that, some things you do at home, some things you do here. When I come here, I talk with all my friends who are of different cultures, and I get along perfectly well with them. And I kind of enjoy the experience, kind of transitioning from home to school. So really what I would say is it's not about what you need to do, it's about just let it fall in place and it'll happen.
So how do you balance your Hispanic culture at home and then your, quote-unquote, Lovett culture here? Is it difficult? Is it easy for you?
I find it pretty easy because my parents raised me with lots of different aspects of different cultures, since my parents one is from Mexico and one is from Argentina, but she is very Brazilian-like because she lived there most of her life. So there's different aspects of culture that I have brought together to create, my lifestyle. And so when Lovett brings all these different aspects of their culture, I didn't find it too difficult. But I could see how people that are coming in from, just say one culture and one religion, it could be much more difficult for them to...
So how do you manage to balance that?
Balance what?
Your Korean culture and the American side of things.
I don't. I don't really balance it. I act the way that I act the way that my friends act, which is pretty predictable considering that I hang out with mostly, since there is a white majority at Lovett, surprisingly, I don't hang out with a white majority at Lovett because most of the friends I have at Lovett are Asian, thinking about it, and we just kind of, I don't know, I think it's just easier for all of us to correlate and relate to one another.
Well, I've got a really good friend group. I think that really helps me balance both, so I don't feel like I need to be more one way to have friends than the other. And we're kind of a mixed match of everything, and it works really well for me. If I didn't have them, I don't know, I probably wouldn't be as confident or as happy as I am now.
What I tell my daughter is to value her culture, to learn from our culture, to know it, and and for her to feel good about being an Ethiopian, and also to feel good about being an American, so she can learn both cultures and just live with both aspects that you can like.
I don't ever want a student to feel silenced or shamed, ever. That would just break my heart if I were to learn that had happened. So there's a way to be unapologetic about your own identity and say, yep, this is who I am, and you are something else, and together we make the world a better place. me, the death sentence in diversity, education, multiculturalism, the death sentence is when we become so afraid that we're going to offend that we just don't say anything at all.